Imagine two people. One is a Harvard-educated Merrill Lynch executive with an MBA, a man so successful in finance that he was featured in 40 Under 40 lists and praised for his business savvy. He retired in his 40s, borrowed heavily to build an 18,000 square foot mansion with 2 elevators and 11 bathrooms, and spent $90,000 a month just on maintenance. The other person is a janitor from rural Vermont who spent 25 years fixing cars at a gas station and 17 years sweeping floors at JCPenney. He lived in a tiny 2-bedroom house he bought for $12,000, and his main hobby was chopping firewood. When they both died in 2014, the world saw something that doesn't happen in any other field. The executive was bankrupt. His home sold at a foreclosure auction for a fraction of its value. The janitor, Ronald Reed, left behind over $8 million to his local hospital and library. There was no secret inheritance, no lottery win. He just saved what he could and invested in blue-chip stocks for decades, letting tiny savings compound into a fortune. In what other world does a janitor outperform a Harvard-trained expert? You won't see a janitor performing a heart transplant better than a surgeon or designing a skyscraper better than an architect. But in money, it happens. Because financial success isn't a hard science. It's a soft skill. It's not about how smart you are. It's about how you behave. We've been taught to think about money like physics, with rules and laws. But we should be thinking about it like psychology, with all its emotions and nuance. I've realized that a lot of the crazy things people do with money actually make perfect sense once you look at their lives. We all think we know how the world works, but we've each only experienced about 0.000000001% of what's actually happened. If you grew up when inflation was high, you see bonds as wealth incinerators. If you grew up when the stock market was booming, you see it as a wealth-generating machine. We aren't making decisions with a spreadsheet at the dinner table. We're making them based on our own unique history, our ego, and our own personal fears. Take lottery tickets. In the US, the lowest income households spend over $400 a year on them. The same group of people who say they couldn't come up with $400 in an emergency. From the outside, that looks like a terrible decision. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, with no hope of a raise, and no way to afford a vacation or a new car, that ticket is the only time in your life you can hold a tangible dream of the good life that others take for granted. You're paying for a dream. I might not agree with it, but I can understand it. The truth is, we're all just newbies at this game. Modern retirement is only about 2 generations old. The 401k didn't even exist until 1978. The Roth IRA is barely old enough to drink. We're winging it in a system that's still brand new to human history, which is why so many of us feel like we're failing. It helps to remember that when we judge success, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems. Luck and risk are siblings. They both represent the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than your own effort. Bill Gates had a 1 in a million head start because he happened to attend one of the only high schools in the world with a computer in 1968. His best friend, Kent Evans, was just as skilled and ambitious, but he died in a mountaineering accident before he could graduate. The odds of being killed on a mountain are also about 1 in a million. Same force, same magnitude, just working in opposite directions. When things are going great, you have to realize you aren't invincible. If you acknowledge that luck brought you success, you have to believe that risk can take it away just as fast. But the same is true for failure. Sometimes a bad outcome just means you were on the wrong side of risk. The trick is to arrange your life so that one bad bet doesn't wipe you out, allowing you to stay in the game until the odds fall in your favor. I think about the story of Joseph Heller, the author of Catch-22. He was at a party hosted by a billionaire hedge fund manager, and someone told him that the host made more money in a single day than Heller had made from his entire book. Heller just said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have, enough." That is one of the hardest financial skills. Getting the goalpost to stop moving. Modern capitalism is amazing at generating wealth, but it's even better at generating envy. If your expectations rise with your income, you'll never feel satisfied, no matter how much you make. You'll find yourself taking greater and greater risks because you feel like you're falling behind. There are things that are never worth risking, no matter the potential gain. Your reputation, your freedom, your family, and your happiness. Knowing when you have enough is the only way to protect them. If you want to know the secret to building wealth, it's actually incredibly boring. Just wait. Compounding is like the way an ice age starts. It's not necessarily about a huge amount of snow. It's about a little bit of snow that lasts through the summer. If a summer is cool enough that it doesn't melt the previous winter's snow, that leftover ice makes it easier for more snow to stick the next year. It's a tiny change that leads to a continental ice sheet. Warren Buffett is the ultimate example of this. He's a phenomenal investor, but his real skill is time. He started serious investing when he was 10 years old. If he had waited until his 30s to start and retired in his 60s, like a normal person, his net worth would be about 99.9% lower than it is today. His skill is investing, but his secret is that he's been doing it for 3/4 of a century. Good investing isn't about earning the highest returns. Those are often one-off hits you can't repeat. It's about earning pretty good returns that you can stick with for the longest period of time. This is why staying wealthy is a different skill than getting wealthy. Getting money requires taking risks and being optimistic. Keeping money requires the opposite: humility and a fear that what you've made can be taken away just as fast. You have to be financially unbreakable. Think about it. Compounding only works if you can give an asset years to grow. If you panic and sell during a recession or get wiped out because you use too much debt, you interrupt the chain. The best plan is a plan that can survive the fact that the world is filled with landmines. You need to be a barbelled personality, optimistic about the long-term future, but paranoid about the short-term obstacles that could prevent you from getting there. You're still listening, which tells me you're looking for a different way to think about your future. Let's look at what that actually looks like in practice. One of the most counterintuitive things I've learned is that you can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. Most of our attention goes to things that are huge and influential, but those are almost always tail events, outlying 1 in a million moments. In the stock market, 40% of public companies essentially fail over time, losing 70% of their value. Almost all the returns come from just 7% of companies that perform exceptionally well. It's the same for your own career or your own investments. Your success will be determined by how you act during the 1% of the time when everyone else is going crazy. An investing genius is just the person who can do the average thing when everyone around them is losing their mind. We see the finished product of a genius like Warren Buffett, but we don't see the 400 or 500 stocks he owned where he made most of his money on only 10 of them. He was wrong plenty of times, but he was right when it mattered. If you ask me what the highest form of wealth is, it's simple. The ability to wake up every morning and say, "I can do whatever I want today." Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. It's a more dependable predictor of happiness than your salary or the size of your house. We've used our increased wealth over the last 50 years to buy bigger stuff, but we've simultaneously given up more control over our time. Most of us have thought-based jobs now, which means work never really ends. You're thinking about your project while you're making dinner or putting the kids to bed. Having a bit of unspent money, wealth you can't see, gives you the flexibility to wait for a better job or take a lower-paying one with a shorter commute. That flexibility is a hidden return on your wealth that's becoming more valuable every year. And let's be honest about why we want the big house or the Ferrari. We think it'll buy us respect and admiration. But here's the paradox. When you see someone driving a Lamborghini, You rarely think, wow, that guy is cool. You think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. You're gawking at the car, not the driver. Humility and kindness will bring you more respect than horsepower ever will. The fastest way to have less money is to spend it to show people how much you have. There's a big difference between being rich and being wealthy. Rich is a current income. It's the guy in the $100,000 car. Wealth is hidden. It's the income not spent, the options not yet taken. It's the restraint required to turn down the treat meal so you can actually burn net calories over time. Since wealth is just the accumulated leftovers of your life, building it has more to do with your savings rate than your investment returns. You can build wealth without a high income, but you have no chance without a high savings rate. And your savings rate is just the gap between your ego and your income. If you can learn to be happy with less, you create a gap that is entirely within your control. You don't even need a specific reason to save. Saving is just a hedge against a world that is guaranteed to surprise you at the worst possible moment. I've learned to stop trying to be coldly rational with my money and just aim to be pretty reasonable. A rational person would look at the math and realize that a fever helps fight infection, but a reasonable person wants the Tylenol because fevers hurt. In investing, you don't necessarily want the mathematically optimal strategy. You want the one that helps you sleep at night. If you love your investments, even if they aren't technically perfect, you're more likely to stick with them when things get difficult. Consistency is the only thing that lets the math of compounding work. We have to accept that we are poor forecasters of our future selves. The end of history illusion makes us think we've finally become the people we're going to be for the rest of our lives, even though we know how much we've changed in the past. The person you are at 18, picking a career, is a stranger to the person you'll be at 40. So, avoid the extreme ends of financial planning. Aim for balance. Moderate savings, moderate free time, and moderate time with your family. It gives you the endurance to stay the course even as your desires evolve. Success in this game has a price, but it's not on a label. The price of investing is volatility, fear, and doubt. If you view a 20% market drop as a fine for doing something wrong, you'll try to avoid it, and you'll probably end up paying double. But if you view it as a fee, like the price of a ticket to Disneyland, it looks different. It's just the cost of admission for the magic of long-term returns. In the end, you have to define the game you're playing. A day trader and a 30-year investor are playing two completely different games on the same field. If you start taking cues from someone playing a different game than you, you're asking for trouble. Write down your own mission statement. For me, it's being a passive investor who is optimistic about the world and confident in economic growth over the next 30 years. Anything that happens this year or next year is part of a game I'm simply not playing. No one is crazy. We're all just making decisions that make sense to us in the moment based on the stories we tell ourselves. My own goal isn't to maximize returns, it's to maximize independence. I want to wake up knowing my family is safe and we can do what we want on our own terms. That's the ultimate goal of mastering the psychology of money. What game are you playing? If this perspective changed how you think about your bank account, consider subscribing for more insights that actually matter.